Hello everyone, Michelle Shepherd here, and welcome to our little tutorial or walkthrough of how to make meal planning easy. I am a registered dietitian and own West Coast Nutrition, and one of the things I'm most passionate about is helping my clients. And the main thing we do is dial into both the what to eat, the numbers, the nutrients, the foods that go on the plate, figuring out what really works for their body, all about that kind of what. But the second piece of that is so important, and I think most of us miss when we get on a diet or we try a new thing, is the how to keep eating that way so that you can continue to get those results, whether they're energy or really keeping weight off if you've worked really hard, or getting that digestive system happy and healthy. So today we are going to dive into something that you need to be good at no matter what kind of diet you follow. And we are going to talk about both how to make it consistent so that you can get those sustained results, but also how to make it easier so you can keep doing it. One of the things that is just kind of king for long-term results is consistency. So we'll get you today, whether you are new to meal planning and this is your first go and you feel a little bit overwhelmed with all the templates and strategies, or whether you already have some meal planning skills and you struggle with the consistency of meal planning, forgetting or getting busy, or just resistance to sitting down because it feels so big. So let's dive in here. So the number one thing we need to think about is start simple. One of the places as humans we get stuck is that we feel like for it to be useful, it needs to be more complicated than it actually has to be. So I will say that consistent, well-planned meals for 4 weeks, even if they're not perfect or they're not keto or they're not vegan, is going to get you much farther in terms of how you feel and what you want to see than just kind of intermittently 100% on and then falling off because you haven't planned. So start simple for me really means scaling back our effort and building a system to make it easy. If you are kind of new to meal planning or just burnt out, the number one thing you can do is actually just use meals that you are already used to. So meals you enjoy, things you're already making, and put those down so that you already feel confident and comfortable. It's not a big new thing. Take those recipes and then just adapt them so that we can make sure that they're healthy. The other part is resist the temptation to totally start from scratch every week. So absolutely reuse some meals. We all grew up that way. And my personal rule is to not add in more than one new recipe a week, just because it is a little bit mentally draining, even if you need some inspo. And realistically, even in my household, even though I talk food every day, all week, we maybe get 2 new recipes in a month to kind of freshen up our rotation. So keep it simple, scale your efforts back, and don't be afraid to use recipes you already know and enjoy. The second part of that is to put all of those meals on a go-to or much-loved meals list. I can't take credit for this idea. It's been around for a while and a client actually introduced me to it. But this is one of the best ways to reduce the overwhelm that happens when you try and sit down and plan on the weekend and go like, oh my God, what do I choose? And you find yourself down that Pinterest rabbit hole or reading reviews on a website and 2 hours are gone and you have no plan. So what you need to do here is pick, say, 5 or 6 meals you already eat and enjoy, whether that's tacos or casserole or, pasta and spaghetti sauce. Write them all down somewhere you can easily refer to. For us, that is a shared note in our phone in my home, so we can both access or add to it. And that way we can also add links if it's a recipe that needs it, or if it doesn't, it's just a meal like, grilled chicken and salad. We don't have to add that. But it's very easily accessible when we sit down to plan every week. You might also like to write it in like a little journal that you have in the kitchen, or put it right on the fridge on a sticky note. Whatever works for you, works for you. There's no perfect way, but get those meals out of your head and onto something tangible. We're going to use that every week to refer back to so that we know exactly what to pick from instead of having to come up with 7 days worth of new ideas. I cannot undersell how important this step is to reducing that resistance we feel to sitting down. The other part of this is to then go through those recipes you've gathered or meals and just make sure they're balanced. So we're trying to eat healthier here. And so we want every kind of meal to be nourishing, filling, energizing, just full of things that are really going to help us reach our goals. And so there's 3 necessary and a 4th optional to think about. The first is a protein, whether that is meat or chicken, fish, eggs, or a plant protein like tofu or beans. Make sure you've got a protein in that meal, whether you're adding, say, ground turkey to a sauce, or if you usually do something like pierogies, like you're gonna throw some chicken in a pan on the side. Make sure you've really got that part, super important for fullness and stable blood sugar. The second part would be a low carb or a non-starchy veggie. This is all your bright, colorful, crunchy stuff, your salads, your slaw, your snap peas, your tomatoes. We've got a full list of ideas elsewhere for you if you need it. These guys are your repair nutrients, lots of fiber, all the important stuff for really great wellness. The third one is your healthy fats. Those are going to help with fullness and, again, blood sugar stability, and fats also make food taste good. So we need this if we're going to keep doing it. That might be your nuts or seeds, your avocados, your dressings, your olive oil, your butter, things like that. So a little bit goes a long way, but don't skip them. And the last one that is optional would be your healthy carbs. So depending kind of what style of diet you follow and feel best on, you might not need this part, but you might find adding a kind of whole grain like wild rice or whole wheat pasta or quinoa, or a starchy veggie like potatoes or sweet potatoes, beets, carrots, or fruit really adds some sort of mental satisfaction to a meal, important for energy if you have a more intense workout schedule, and sometimes helps with that craving monster we get when we're too restrictive. So absolutely include one if you know it is helpful for you. Moving on to the next step of the system part. So how do we make it happen every week? And that is put a weekly date on the calendar. Consider this a sacrosanct date that is for you. It's a form of self-care. It gets this regularly happening so that you take pressure off of the week. The absolute worst question we have to ask every day is like, what's for dinner? And we spend so much friggin' energy wondering and researching and thinking, and then feeling really frustrated when eating doesn't go as well as we thought it would. So make sure this makes it onto your calendar. I live and die by my Google Calendar because I've got a busy practice, so it goes on my Google Calendar as a recurring item. And you may put it in an agenda, you might write it on a calendar on the fridge. Whatever works for you, again, works for you, but make sure it shows up, that it's recurring, and that if something else comes up those days, especially if you choose a weekend like a Saturday, Sunday, where often our plans shift, you can at least move it, right? So if you suddenly have plans for Sunday morning, you can see that when you go to your calendar. You can block that to maybe Saturday morning or Monday night, just so it always gets done. We often rely on our memory or our sort of internal motivation, but we have a million balls in the air, especially this year. So let's take the memory out of it and the effort out of it and just make it a thing that pops up and reminds us every week. So let's actually walk through my process and how I do this, and a couple key things that will really help your meal planning be practical for your actual real everyday life. So this is one of the templates I use. The updated one you'll get if you signed up for this series will include the healthy fats down there, but we'll roll with this for now. And so the first thing you want to do is either print it out, pull something up, make sure you've got somewhere you can actually write your meal plan down, whether that's on the computer or paper. And so the actual first thing I do before I even get into what meals I'm going to have from that much love list is to go, okay, what's on my calendar for the week? So that might mean that, say, if I look at Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, we are out for dinner with friends. Maybe Sunday morning we're having brunch with my parents. So I don't need to make or worry or plan for those meals. We're not going to be home. This also helps me catch those treats. So if I'm having a lot of things come up, it kind of gives me a sense of how on track I might need to be on other days in order to still feel good. I also like to make note of things like working late. So Wednesday nights I work late with clients, and I rarely feel motivated to come home and make a big meal. So at 8:30 at night, it's nice to either know I need to have leftovers or a backup plan that's easy to pick up and just eat at that time. So being very reasonable and getting all of that stuff on there. If you have kids, you might want to throw on their soccer practices or nights that might need to be done really early, so that you are super reasonable about how much you can get done and when you should do it. The second part, of course, is going to take out that go-to meal list or that much loved list, and then fill in these meals so that you can get a full sense of your week. So just to start off here, one of the things that can be helpful is to pick a breakfast or two, so don't go crazy with that one. and make sure that you have got, you know, your protein, your fruit or veggie at breakfast, and potentially a healthy carb if that works for you. I've also obviously noted that, hey, at lunch, I've got that working meeting. I need to pick up that bowl before I go so I can have it. And then I've picked a dinner that is batchable so that I can have leftovers for lunches the days after. Not everyone loves leftovers, but if you don't mind them, it's a great way to reduce effort as far as both practical time and energy spent. And so if I go back and say, draw something here and do a quick check. So remember, we wanted those 4 things. So in a frittata, I've got my eggs for protein. I've got sun-dried tomatoes and spinach for my veggies. I've got a healthy carb for toast. And I have also that healthy fat in my avocado there. And if I double check my dinner, which is going to go into leftovers for a few days, that grilled chicken is absolutely going to fill my protein. That kale slaw is my low carb veg. And I'm opting not to do a healthy carb here because that works for me. So I eat a little lower carb. It's not for everyone. You've got to find what works for you. And so as you kind of use that go-to list to fill in each day, you really want to go through and just do that quick check that you've covered all of those bases. So those meals are really filling, really nourishing, and help you reach your goals. Just clear that, and then we'll move on. Okay. Clear all drawings, and we'll keep rolling. And so if you'd like to make it even easier, so once you've got that stuff going and you've tried it for a few weeks, one of the ways you can level that up and make those weeks simpler is to make what I call an evergreen or recurring grocery list. And so what this is a list that you've already got some of your staples on that it's really easy to roll over from week to week, so you're not always recreating the meal. And a grocery list, whether evergreen or not, is really important because it means less trips, which means less snacky and kind of random stuff making it in, and less energy spent on food, which gives you lots of energy for other things, and sort of paradoxically also makes you think about food less, which makes healthy eating easier. So really trying to make sure you've got a real thorough grocery list before you go. If you're someone who likes to shop the sales, that may just mean you bring up the website while you are creating that grocery list. So if you want to sub out a protein or a different veggie, you can do that without having to wander the whole store. The first thing you want to do is make a list of your staples. Do you always have eggs or yogurt or berries? Do you guys do almond milk or regular milk? What are those things that you guys go through every week? Ours absolutely includes a bunch of things, including eggs, spinach, because we go through a ton of it, lactose-free yogurt for me, almond milk for me, creamer for Robert, you know, all sorts of just things that are normal staple, either snacks or meal things for us. The second part is then to create a list for that weekly item. And then I usually create a second section for like, so I have my section for staples and I have a section for weekly. And if you're using a note in your phone or an app or something, what that means is that kind of staple item you can just check or uncheck depending on the state of your fridge. So you're not always writing them down again, and it's really easy to communicate, especially if you've got someone else grocery shopping as well. On those weekly items, that's where you fill in stuff from your meal plan. So what is going in your frittata this week that might not have been there? Are you guys throwing a new fruit in your yogurt for breakfast? Do you need stuff for smoothies? And what are those veggies and proteins that you need to fill in from those dinners? So it's complete, it's full, and what you end up with is you're not struggling with, well, I planned this, but I'm totally out of spice X or veggie Y on Wednesday night. You know what? Screw it, we're just gonna order pizza. So it prevents those kind of frustrated moments where we hit that screw it button because we are generally a little bit better prepared and not relying on our memory or our effort kind of middle of the week. The other thing would be just to add things as you go throughout the week. So we keep ours as like a running note in our phone. So if I see that we're, you know, getting low on cinnamon or something, I can throw that on there. It makes it really easy for me to access. So whichever way you're doing it, written or digital, make sure it's as simple and works for you as possible. There's also lots of apps and templates and things like that you can use as well. And the second kind of way to level up once you've got planning down, and that I think a lot of us resist, is meal prep. And this does not mean 28 days worth of freezer meals done and dusted on one 12-hour Sunday a week, unless that works for you. but it does mean getting a little bit ahead of the practical stuff that we have to do to get food on the table. For most of us, this is actually really simple. So if you want to get started with this, I always ask clients a few questions. So how much time do I have to cook on weekdays? You might have a ton because you are working from home and done at 4, or your kids might be super busy and weekdays are a nightmare. How much energy do I usually have on like Wednesday or Thursday night, right? So late enough in the week that the end is not close, you're feeling a little drained. How motivated, how energetic are you? What days and times do I have where I can get some meal prep or some cooking done and that feels pretty good? And is there anywhere that I can get help, right? So can my kids help out? Is my hubby home a different day? Just trying to figure those parts out. And particularly if you found that there's a lot of nights that are hard, either from an energy perspective or busy to get cooking done, this is where prep is really, really helpful. Most of my clients will usually do a mix of maybe batch cooking a meal or two, so something Sunday night they can have for leftovers for lunches or the next night for a couple of days. But really just getting chopping done when the groceries come in the fridge, maybe making a couple salad dressings if that's your jam, getting lunches kind of prepped and ready to go so you're not having that extra step every night. Really making sure that they're just kind of streamlining their efforts. One of the things I even do is if I haven't done some get ahead chopping, which I often don't, is that when I chop a veggie for a meal, I will chop the whole thing. So if we've got peppers and a couple of things, I'll quickly flip, okay, do these need to be diced or sliced, and get them done while the cutting board's out, while the knife is out, while the dishes are dirty, just so I'm reducing that effort. I encourage you to start small here with dressings, marinades, chopping, to keep it to under an hour or two kind of per week of prep at the beginning. Some of my clients spend longer and really enjoy it, but my kind of experience has been that if you go too hard, too fast, you're going to burn out. It's going to feel great that first week, but spending 6 hours every Sunday while your family does other fun stuff might not be sustainable. So really find what works for you here. But as always, start simple, start easy, and then ladder up and see what feels really comfortable. I hope you have found these tips, really helpful and inspiring, that you can get over the hump of meal planning consistently and also it not being so hard. So I am going to encourage you to kind of follow us on Instagram or sign up for our email list if you're not already there. So I'll send out lots more tips and ideas kind of as they come up. And I send out a lot of recipes too if you need some fresh inspo. So thank you so much for being here. Let me know if you found this helpful, and happy meal planning. Bye guys.